Hello, Jane. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Neil. How are you?
Very good, very good. Now's a good time to chat?
Yep, now's perfect. That's not a problem at all.
All right, no worries. So, just to touch base with you again on your sighting from last week. I think it was last Friday you had the sighting.
Yeah, so last Friday it was, absolutely.
So that's a week ago today.
Yes, it was.
Still pretty fresh. And our fourth sighting in Victoria for this year. Actually, no, our third. Our fourth one was on, I think, Saturday down near Wonthaggi. So it's all happening at the moment over there.
It is.
Normally South Australia gets a lot of sightings, and I'm sure they'll get a few later on in the year. But anyway, let's hear it. Tell me where it all began.
Okay, so last Friday morning, it was about 11:30 a.m. I have a horse property south of Ballarat. I won't mention sort of specific directions or anything.
Sure.
So I was actually out with the horses filling up my horse troughs because it was going to be quite a warm weekend. So I was out filling up one particular trough, looked up and saw something moving up the end of the paddock. The horses were down with me, so they weren't actually up in the paddocks at that particular point. So I looked up and saw something sort of moving through the tree line at the back of the paddock. It actually crossed three of my smaller paddocks up the back,
Right.
through the tree line. And the third paddock is actually quite open. So it wasn't probably until it got out into the third paddock that my brain kind of exploded, in a sense of me going, what the actual hell? And I couldn't quite compute what it was that I was seeing, which I guess probably scared me, made me a little bit nervous.
So when you initially spotted it, what sort of distance away was it roughly?
So I was probably about sort of 50, 60 metres away from it.
Okay, and it was walking towards you?
So it was walking, so I had the side-on view at that particular point. And the first thing I noticed about it was quite big. Obviously, living in a rural area, we get a lot of foxes and kangaroos and things like that. But yeah, it was quite a bit bigger than a fox. I guess when it was sort of moving in and out of the tree line, I kind of went, I didn't really sort of take much notice. I saw it, but it wasn't till it was out in the open that I went, wow, that's actually really quite big. And that's when I dropped the hose and just stared at it, and I was like, I can't get my head around this. So yeah, it was quite a large animal.
What time of day was it?
So it was about 11:30 in the morning, actually.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which confused me a bit as well, because usually you don't see anything out and about that sort of middle of the day. But yeah, it was quite well hidden in the beginning, as I said, until it got to the third paddock, and then it was out in the open, and then I actually got a really good look at it. So altogether, I probably watched it for about 20 to 30 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I think you mentioned the other day that you sort of dropped the hose and then you moved a bit closer towards it near a gate or something. Was that right?
Yeah, so I dropped the hose when it came out into the third paddock, and my brain actually kind of went, oh my God, you've really got to look at this. So I dropped the hose, walked around the corner of the gate, which was only probably about 4 or 5 paces.
Yep.
And I had a fairly good view right up the paddock of it over the farm gate.
Okay.
Because by that stage it was out in the open in that third paddock.
And how far from you was it by this stage when it was getting closer to you? It was obviously getting...
Probably about 40, 50 metres at that stage. It had come a little bit closer.
Okay. So it's following a fence line that's sort of running parallel to you.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Okay, yep.
Yep.
And you said clearly it didn't look like a fox, so you didn't think it was a dog?
No,
Okay, so you're very familiar with rural animals
So
and dogs and
quite
cats.
familiar with small animals, large animals. Have done lots of wildlife rescue and wildlife care and rehabilitation as well. And I think that's why my brain sort of went through that explosive mode. It wasn't like anything I've ever seen before. So that's why I obviously sort of contacted you, because when I got my brain around it, there was only one thing that I actually went straight up to the house after I saw it and started Googling, pictures of native wildlife and what it could be and what colour, particular animals were and what things looked like. And that's why I went, oh my God, that's the only thing it could have been was what you're looking for.
Which is a thylacine.
Yeah, and that's, I Googled, I sort of went straight in, grabbed my phone and did my research and went, oh my God, what is my brain doing at the moment? It was in gone crazy mode. I actually picked up the phone. My husband was down the other end of our property on that particular day, and I rang him straight away when I got back up to the house and said, whereabouts are you? And he said, I'm sort of down the other west corner. I said, did you actually see anything? And he goes, what have I seen? And I said, have you seen anything down there? And he goes, no, what are you talking about? And I said, I just saw something. And he said, what did you see? And I said, well, I think what I saw I couldn't have seen. And he goes, what did it look like? And I'm like, oh, I think I'm going crazy. And he goes, what did it look like? Are you okay? I said, it looked like a bloody thylacine. And he was like, are you all right? I'm like, yeah, I think so, but I'm really confused. I just saw something that I've never seen before and I can't get my head around it.
So, there's obviously going to be certain features about the animal that made you think it was a thylacine. So, could you describe those to me?
Yeah, so it was big, a lot bigger than a fox. I've got dogs, sort of large breed dogs, and it was larger than my biggest dog, so it would have been probably, guessing between sort of, like a Labrador to German Shepherd size.
Okay.
Quite large, quite long, quite a sleek animal. It was like a sandy fawny colour.
Yep.
The thing that really confused me though was the back of it. So the back of the animal was like the hocks were in a higher up position. The stifles were quite bent. It actually looked like one of those sort of old style German Shepherds with a slope back, the way it was moving.
Okay, so it was sort of the particular locomotion that it was using. What would you describe that as?
So it was more of a galloping kind of motion. I have horses.
Yep.
And it looked like it was actually galloping with its back legs, which was a really strange gait. The gait of it was like nothing I've ever seen before. And the tail. So it had a really long tail. So the tail itself would have been as long as the animal again.
Okay.
But it was straight. So as it was galloping, the tail was straight out the back of it, and quite long and quite chunky up near the tail base.
Okay, so it had that real thick tail base where, like a kangaroo stores fat.
Yeah, so it actually looked like a kangaroo tail, like a really long, straight kangaroo tail out the back of this animal.
Okay.
But obviously the same sort of, sandy fawny colour at the back. From where I was, I didn't see, defined stripes, but it was certainly darker at the back of the animal than what it was at the front.
Okay, so there was a different tone in the colour.
Yeah, I didn't, as I said, from where I was, I didn't see defined stripes, but it was definitely a lot darker towards the back of the animal.
Yeah.
When it got up to the end of the fence line, across the end of the third paddock, I actually realised that it knew I was watching it because it stopped, turned around, looked straight at me, and then turned back around and ducked under one of the fences that we've got up in the back of the paddock, and headed out towards the bushland and the escarpment down to a local river that we were actually situated on.
Okay. So you've seen this thing from quite a few different angles through that process. You've seen it from front on and sort of side on, yeah?
Yeah. So it turned, so I saw it side on as it was galloping across the third paddock. And then it obviously knew I was watching it, stopped, looked straight at me, so turned around. It was quite broad-chested, so it was quite broad along the front of it when it turned to face me.
Yep.
And it had quite a long snout, and quite a broad head.
So like a
looked
buffy
like
head.
little short stubby ears. Like they weren't really big sort of ear pinnae that stick up like a dog.
Yep.
They were a little bit smaller. But yeah, quite a broad head. Looked to be quite a long snout as well. And a little bit lighter around the face from what I could see.
As in the coloration.
Yeah, so a little bit lighter around the coloration of the face and the snout.
Okay.
And big eyes, like big dark eyes on it. That was the other thing that sort of caused my brain to go, wow, okay, that's weird. Yeah, just the really big eyes, big dark eyes. Not like a fox who's got sort of tiny little beady eyes. It was, big black eyes looking at me.
And then the position of the eyes was different to a fox's, as, where they sit on the head?
Yeah. So it almost positioning a little bit more like a dog, but more probably front.
Yeah.
I mean, it just looked like big sort of thick, eye set and thick jawline and quite chunky in the face.
Yeah, okay. So this wasn't a thin, gaunt-looking animal. This was a healthy, stocky-looking beast?
Oh, no, it was big.
Yep.
It was very big, yeah. It looked quite a healthy, whatever it was, it looked quite healthy, quite happy. And it knew that I was there.
Yep.
Obviously knew that I was there watching it, turned, looked at me, and then, sort of went underneath the fence and disappeared into adjoining bushland that we have at the back of our property. Yeah.
The lighting, obviously it was 11:30 in the morning, so you had pretty good light, wasn't overcast or dark or anything?
Bright sunlight. It was quite a warm day, so that's why I was out filling the troughs up with the horses. It was quite warm, so quite a sunny, warm day, yeah.
Yeah. Now, there was another detail that you mentioned the other day, which I'll remind you of, which I thought was particularly good information. What's been happening with your dogs and your horses of an evening?
Oh, yeah, so I think I did mention to you the other day when we had spoken that the past sort of week or so, I think it started the Wednesday, Thursday night before I'd actually, been there on the Friday and witnessed whatever it was that I witnessed. At night, the dogs have been just going off, going crazy all night, barking, snarling, wanting to go outside. So they've been quite agitated the last sort of few nights before this. They were again last night as well, so a week on, and my horses had been quite agitated around about that time as well, and been down towards, the stable area of the paddocks, which is, they've been keeping around that sort of same area, which is down towards the house more.
Yep.
And at night I'd sort of heard them, you can always sort of hear them galloping around or footsteps and things like that. When
So they're
running.
not resting as much as they would normally?
Sorry?
At night they've been a bit agitated and restless.
Yeah, normally they're quite calm. Normally we don't hear from them at all, and the dogs are the same. They normally sort of, at night they go to sleep, you don't hear from them till the next morning. But everyone's sort of been a bit agitated at our place lately.
Okay. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You did say that you'd heard some noises as well.
Yeah, so on and off the last sort of couple of months, I would say, and I've mentioned it to my daughter, we've been out sort of, walking on dusk or, at night. We quite often go around looking for koalas and possums and things like that. And we'd heard some, like, yip-yapping sounds.
Could you make that noise for me? You did it the other day.
It was like a really high-pitched sort of yippy sound. It was more like a yip,
Okay.
things like that, which we sort of went, oh, that's a bit weird, I don't know what that is, but obviously just assumed it was something out there. But yeah, we've heard that a bit recently, sort of down the back towards the ridge and the river.
Did you get a chance to have a look at the evidence page on our website?
I had a quick look. I've been sort of on and off working and training this week, so I haven't had a lot of time.
Okay. If you do,
yeah.
there is actually some vocal recordings on there that I got in Tassie about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They're right. There's a page on there called The Evidence Thus Far. If you scroll almost to the bottom, I think you'll find the video clips where those recordings are. When you're not busy and you get a chance, if you could have a listen to them and then compare them to what you heard and just let me know.
Yeah. I did look at the video that you sort of pointed me towards the other day.
Oh yeah, about the gait.
Of the gait of the animal, because I know when we talked I was sort of a bit like, oh, this is really weird, I've never seen that gait before on anything.
Yep.
And you pointed me towards a particular video to have a watch, and I did, and it was exactly that same gait that I saw with that sort of, it seemed like it was walking with its front legs but galloping with its back legs, like a hop, skip, gallop kind of gait.
Excellent.
Yeah, and that's what I went, oh, that is not normal. That's not, yeah.
Being a horse person and someone involved in the animal sciences, I'm going to take your experience very seriously, because you know your stuff. I mean, you're using scientific terms just to describe parts of the anatomy as it is. So
yeah. Look, I've worked with animals my whole entire life. As I said, emergency medicine. I've done wildlife rescue and rehab, and worked with large animals and small animals and everything sort of across the board in between. So, and whatever I saw last Friday was not something in my brain that I've ever seen before or experienced. It was probably the strangest thing I've ever come across in my life.
And it's the only sort of candidate that you can come up with is a thylacine.
Well, as I said, I went straight back into the house, gobsmacked. I sort of had to, pull yourself together, and walked back up to the house and grabbed my phone. I sat on my front steps and started Googling, what it could have been. I Googled foxes, I Googled kangaroos, I Googled, all sorts of what has a tail like this and what walks like this and what's this colour and, and I kind of found a few photos and videos and things and went, okay, well, they're meant to be extinct. It could not have been that, but for all intents and purposes, my brain can't come up with anything else.
Yep, fair enough.
Yeah.
You'd be interested to know that the early settlers in Tasmania, when they described seeing thylacines run, they were obviously well versed in animal husbandry, being pioneers, and horses were like their tractor and their truck. And they often described them as having a gallop.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. It looked like a horse in the back end.
Sure, with the way it was moving.
Yeah, which was really strange. That was the other thing. I think probably the three things that really got me were the tail.
Yep.
The way that it moved. And when it turned to look at me, just that front on, really broad chest and the face and the eyes looking at me was like, I've never seen this kind of thing before. They were the three things that really in my brain stood out and went, what the?
Just off topic, working in the industry you're in, have you heard of any other unusual animal sightings in your area?
Yeah, so in the area that we actually live in, there's quite a few sightings or local people that think that they've seen a black panther.
Okay.
So yeah, there's always sightings around here of black panthers and prints and things like that.
That's not uncommon in anywhere in Victoria.
Sorry?
That's not uncommon for any area in Victoria.
Yeah, so I'm learning.
Yeah, as is with the thylacine sightings these days too.
Yeah,
so, know, these things are out there. They're just very elusive, like most predators.
Yeah, well, they're definitely out there. I went from Googling this thing and coming up with the thylacine are extinct to sitting there yelling at my phone, going, no, they're not. I'm sort of sitting there talking to my phone by myself, going, no, I know what I've just seen. They're not extinct.
Well, science is a industry that is meant to constantly change with knowledge. So let's hope that they can catch up with the knowledge that many people have of what they've experienced in the Australian bush.
Yeah, and look, just having spoken to you and done some research in the last week and done some googling and having a look at things. Even you've just told me that there's thousands of sightings.
Well, there is, historically, and we get dozens every year. We don't just get a few; we get a couple of dozen from the mainland every year.
That many people can't be wrong, can they? Really?
No. So, what would you say? I'm going to throw you right in the deep end. Now, what would you say to a scientist if he walked up and said, "We want to clone the thylacine. We know it's extinct."
Why would you have to clone it if it's already here?
Yeah.
Like I work in science. I work in veterinary medicine. My brain is science based. I don't know why you would go to the trouble of cloning something that is still walking around quite happily.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a hot potato with me because I see millions and millions of dollars being poured into this research of cloning, and yet we can't get 5 cents spent on. And I'm not asking for the money myself. I just want the universities to get off their bum and actually do what I do,
Yeah.
And let the government or whoever funds these people to pay for it and actually do some good field study. And they may not be in such a hurry to try and clone things then because they'll see there's not such a need.
Yeah. No, well, why would you need to clone something that's, living and breathing at the moment? And a week ago I probably would have had to have thought about that a little bit harder, but after Friday, there was something there that I cannot explain any other way.
Well, that's awesome, Jane.
Look, if it is living on my land happily, then, great, how blessed am I? It's obviously happy, it's safe, it's healthy, and
clearly in safe hands on your property.
Sorry?
It's clearly in safe hands on your property.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, look, and that's why I'm not sort of willing to give out specifics or details or anything.
Sure, and I respect that totally.
Yeah, look, and I think probably the only reason I have agreed to, do the interview, this interview that you've asked me to do is, I guess probably the higher-ups are never going to have their cages rattled if people don't come forward and speak up about what they've seen. That's for, as you know, I've thought about it for a week.
Sure.
I don't want the animal harmed. I don't want it researched. I don't want it disturbed in any way. But I guess if people don't come forward and speak about their experience or speak about what they've seen, then, those so-called scientists are never going to get their cages rattled.
Well, that's it. And I appreciate your motivation for coming forward too. That's exactly the right reason.
Yeah, look, I've spent the last 25 years of my life working for, animal justice and advocating for them and protecting them and saving them in, obviously in the field that I work. So my whole life's been about animals and working for the good of them. So look, if they're out there and they're on my property, then great, they're safe, they're happy, then that's where they'll stay.
Excellent. That's fantastic. Look, I really appreciate your time, and I know you're busy, so I'll let you get on with your day and your weekend. But thank you so much for coming forward and giving me that info, because I reckon it's fantastic. It's a great sighting. It's 20, 30 seconds. You're trained with animals. you're clearly a scientist in your own right, that's the sort of credibility that you would expect the fraternity to be looking for before they'd start taking sightings seriously. So you're ticking all the boxes, which is great.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I definitely saw something, and it was probably one of the most incredible things I've ever seen with my own two eyes. It was beautiful. It was one of those moments that really made me stop and stare and go, oh my God. And even thinking back on it now, it gives me shivers. It was absolutely incredible to see whatever it was, because it was just beautiful.
Well, welcome to the club.
Yeah, thank you.
The membership's growing exponentially.
I googled videos of Benjamin in the Hobart Zoo and things like that, and I went, oh my God, I just love him. He's just beautiful. So they are, from what I've researched in the last week, absolutely beautiful animals. So
that's fantastic.
Hopefully, if they do prove they're out there, then they are protected.
Yeah, better than what they are now.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right, well, I'll let you go. Thank you very much for your time. And like I said, if you find any prints or any unusual deaths in the local mammal population, do let me know.
Yeah, we'll let you know, definitely.
Awesome. All right, thanks a lot.
Right, perfect. Thanks so much, Neil. Thanks.
All the best. Have a good weekend.
All right, thanks. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
How good was that?